Have you heard about the NFID Foundation yet? They are spearheading the SSI, that's Self-Sovereign Identity movement, towards decentralized verifiable credentials. NFID exists to help companies launch products which reduce the costs of regulatory risk associated with collecting and storing PII, that's personally identifiable information, by eliminating the need for having it in the first place. Learn more about NFID and collaborate with current member companies who specialize in physical identity and access control. Visit nfid.foundation for more information.
Before COVID, no one really trusted the phone as a form of access control. And you had your piece of paper that said, I got my shots, and then everyone got tired of pulling that out. And with the COVID credential to prove that really kind of got people thinking about using your phone as a form of validating yourself.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Welcome to the Aid to Entry podcast, and thanks for tuning in however or wherever you found us. At Aid to Entry, we speak with executives, tech geeks, influencers, and changemakers who are embracing new identity technologies in the digital transformation of physical and online access. Now, what does that mean? Stay tuned, listen closely, and you'll find out. Because what we're talking about affects every part of society. In Season 1, we'll mostly focus on physical security. We will talk with leading security experts in the industry who are beginning to see what I refer to as the art of the possible, which is using new identity technology solutions for creating a more touchless, mobile, frictionless experience for their end user customers. In this case, we're talking about physical and online access permissions at work and at play. Everything from boarding an airplane, getting approved for a home loan, going to a stadium to see your favorite sports team or concert, paying your taxes online, to logging onto your computer at work, or just having a work door open because you have access permission using Aid to Entry technology. I call it moving from a Flintstones to Jetsons world, and it's happening before our eyes if you look for it. Critical to the conversation, though, we also need to be able to look at the legal, privacy, compliance, and trust issues we must take into consideration as we continue down this path. We need to educate the public about what businesses are doing with our PII, personally identifiable information, our data. I'm your host and tour guide, Doug O'Gordon, Chief Identity Hunter at Get to the Point Media. Now let's get to the point. Okay, so this is it. Season 1. Episode 5, and today we're going to talk with Jarret Mui. Jarret's the triple threat in the field of the art of the possible, is what I call it. And what do I mean by that? Currently, Jarret is at Design West Engineering, one of the West Coast's most successful MEP design firms. And for those who don't know, and I didn't know, MEP stands for Mechanical, Electrical, and Plumbing. It works in the government space, education, healthcare, and building markets. Jarret also has worked as a technology designer for AEI, based in Madison, Wisconsin, I know. A top 10 global engineering firm with tons of praise and awards to back it up for their work in healthcare, education, government projects. And prior to that, Jarret worked 6 years at TCOM, a design firm that makes mobile, touchless, frictionless technology work inside buildings. And that sounds very interesting to me because that was, I think, pre-pandemic. At TCOM, he focused on design and implementation of security systems for hyperscale data center facilities in accordance with industry best practices and compliance standards. Jarret, you're my MVP, I think, when it comes to Aid to Entry and Art of the Possible. Welcome to the Aid to Entry podcast.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Let's start out real quick then. Could you give me your, it's going to take longer than 30 seconds, but give me your 30-second elevator pitch on what you do in your own words so I don't screw it up.
Okay, yeah. So my 30-second pitch is I'm essentially just a, like you said, technology consultant. I design security systems for buildings, so primarily access control and video, and try to make it, last as long as possible for the end user. So we focus on the structured cabling solution, the conduits, the rack equipment, everything that we need that, um, to support their business.
Right out of the gate, I'm going to ask you what's the craziest, most unconventional, art of the possible aid to entry project you ever worked on before COVID and then after COVID? So give me your first, in your world, starting out in this industry. What was your first pre-COVID, big project experience that kind of blew your mind? I guess.
I would say it would be one of the data centers actually, because we did a lot of biometrics in those facilities and I wasn't exposed to it until then. And then post COVID, now we're starting to, especially with Alcatraz AI, kind of change the game on how people think about frictionless access control. Um, trying to get those into local governments and schools even to secure those facilities.
Yeah, I mean, pre-COVID, we were still, I call it Flintstones. I go Flintstones to Jetsons. That's my discussion of where we were pre-pandemic and then where we're at now today. But I don't think we would have had this huge increase in mobile touchless frictionless technology unless COVID happened.
I agree, especially with the COVID cards, because I mean, before COVID, no one really trusted the phone as a form of access control. And you had your piece of paper that said, I got my I got my shots, and then everyone got tired of pulling that out. And with the COVID credential to prove that, that really kind of got people thinking about using your phone as a form of validating yourself.
That's awesome. How about your biggest project after COVID, like in the last couple of years? What's your how have they gotten to be so mobile, touchless, frictionless post COVID?
Post COVID, there isn't really a push to have, I guess, biometrics or mobile credentials really outside of certain spaces, and that's just because people don't quite trust the technology, and they don't trust that someone's going to use that information against them. I think I think once that trust is made, where there's like a way to guarantee people's security and privacy, then there'll be more of a push towards the mobile credential. But we're just not there yet. To answer your question, I haven't been specifying too much of it. I've been trying to convince people that it's safe, but it's an uphill battle.
Yeah, I'd say we're at the starting line. I mean, a lot of people say this is still the beginning. So that's why we're here. I mean, we're here to discuss that. And so you've been in this industry about 10 years in the physical security consulting business. Have you seen any in your lifetime in this industry, what game-changing tech have you found, run into that is this aid to entry related technology?
I would say there hasn't been anything game changing, but the fact that everything convergent on the network creates a lot of possibilities. So it's really the combination of the integration that's game changing, I think. So like the fact that you can use like an Alcatraz AI and scan your face, 5 months in advance, and you show up at the facility, and it lets you in. That I think is game changing. The experience aspect and the integration and creating that frictionless access control. Um, on the design side, there hasn't been too much of innovation. The newest thing I'm not sure if you're aware of is SpecLink, which is a cloud-based management, I guess, software for writing CSI master specs. And that's been kind of game changing because now you can manage all your spec templates from one spot. and you can see what all the changes are in various projects and take those changes and bring it back to the master more easily.
How much do you get involved with the IT departments on what I call the cyberness of physical security today?
Almost entirely, almost every project I'm involved directly with the IT director, or at least the security director, because everything we touch is on their network. So when we try to specify these systems, it requires their input, and we have to do it the way they want it, or it's just not going to be done.
On a scale of 1 to 10, 1 is a train wreck and 2 is like nirvana or tranquility. Can we trust what's going on with all of this interconnectedness technology with big tech? And what's your thought on that?
I'm actually kind of neutral. I think it depends on where you live, and the local government and kind of how they can protect you. Because at the end of the day, it's all about compliance. So if you're wherever you live, if you can trust that the government can protect you from these companies, then you're okay. But if you live in a place where they just let companies walk over you, then no, I would not trust anything.
I was going to throw out a few examples. One of them's facial, I call it facial analysis. Facial analysis in law enforcement is a very touchy subject, but what are your thoughts on using this technology in government applications?
Yeah, I think it really depends. And you brought up a good point because my friend actually used to work at Whole Foods, and he said that when people steal, they kind of get put on this list. Um, do not let this guy return or call the cops. I think in that situation, when it's connected to a crime, it makes sense. But when it comes to like, let's say travel, do you necessarily want a foreign government to have your information? And I think in that situation, it doesn't make sense because why would you let them do that?
Well, so then I'll flip it and say, how about enhancing the customer experience or enhancing the employer employee experience? We're seeing a lot of mobile, touchless, frictionless discussions, at least. Maybe they're not implementations yet, at work and at play. I can mention airport, sports stadiums, amusement parks, Taylor Swift concerts. What is your take on using this technology for better experiences?
I think it's gonna happen because experience is kind of our life, and the less things we can do, we will do it for less. And a lot of it is actually being driven by Apple. They're forcing a lot of manufacturers to go with their mobile wallet, and it's just all about the experience for them. So it's gonna come regardless, and they know that people want that. I for sure want that. I hate getting carded at bars. I hate getting carded at airports. I just want to go straight to, wherever I want to go without any hassle. And validating my identity is kind of a pain.
So, the buzz in the security industry right now and sort of everywhere is, using that digital credential inside that digital wallet for access permissions. Um, I call it aid to entry solutions. That's sort of my buzzword. But where do you feel that is happening within a corporation with better employee, better employer experiences? What are your clients asking for? Are they looking for that technology? Are your customers, your corporations that you work with, are they looking for that mobile experience for their employees?
Not exactly, unless we ask. So typically when I start a project, I ask them at the very beginning, do you want a mobile credential? Do you want frictionless access control? Right now, they just think it's like added cost. But at some point, I think when they realize that it's better for the workflow and actually reduce money by doing that, then they'll start kind of changing their minds on mobile credentials. I think maybe we're a few years out. We're seeing a push of it on the educational side, but the rest of the market still kind of has to catch up and realize what the cost potential is for going with the mobile credential.
Yeah, I think you're right on that. But I think the what I call uh, the elephant in the room, or the 800-pound gorilla, or whatever you want to call it, is mobile credentials are great, but how do we really know who the person is if they're holding the device? I can hold your device and be you if I know your password and I could take a picture of you, and or I could be a man in the middle and get in. I think that's the interconnectedness of everything. That is you know, that's what's happening right now, is trying to find out how to deal with that issue, is authenticating, identifying the person holding the device, that it really is a human for the first thing. And then is that identity being verified properly to let that person into the building? Does that person have zero trust or absolute trust that they are who they say they are holding that device? Um, that's the big question, I think. What's your take on authentication, identification, with a mobile credential?
So the whole issue is the fact that your phone is not a part of you, right?
It
So
is, because
the fact,
you know where it is, right? Might have, but yeah, like I could
but it
be.
is connected. So unless you have a device that's embedded in your body, we're always going to have this issue. So I think the industry kind of caught on to that, and now there's everywhere we go, we talk about multi-factor authentication to to add that extra layer of security and trust. Um, I think the biometric is another form of multi-factor authentication because it automatically verifies who you are based off of a known feature that proves that it's you. I think the issue is a security or a safety issue where how do you guarantee that someone's not going to use your information against you? And that's kind of where I think we need regulation because we need to protect the end user and say, hey, are we gonna use your face and put it on the internet, or are we gonna steal your login for your phone? Like, and once you get access into someone's phone, then that's it. You can drain your bank account. You can pretty much blackmail anybody once you get into their phone.
And I've posted, and you've maybe seen a lot of those Wall Street Journal, or the Wall Street Journal post or video they had on, people, man in the middle attacks or stealing phones to drain bank accounts. Is It's very interesting.
Yeah, it only
So
takes a few seconds too once you're in.
right, they can lock you out and then start taking whatever they want. Are you familiar with the BIPA law? The BIPA law is a Illinois law only, but is being replicated or considered being used in other states as I call it the gold standard for biometric privacy. Do you know anything about it?
Not until I met you.
Okay.
Um, I mean, I guess some of what was in that law, we already try to specify in our projects because of like common sense, like changing passwords and not storing sensitive information. But having it kind of concrete in the law makes sense, at least as a form of protection.
I say my goal in life, or right now, my purpose is just to try to educate people on this law that's either trying to be replicated for use in other states or amended to um, protect the business and protect the people in Illinois. Um, it's all about three things: privacy, trust, and compliance. And, consenting to using the service, telling your employee when you're getting rid of their data, and letting them know what you're doing with their data, and never selling it or resharing it. But those things seem really simple. But today, there's a lot of companies that don't understand the significance of the BIPA law. BIPA stands for the Biometric Information Privacy Act. And I always like to throw that in a little bit on this aid to entry because I think that's why this podcast exists. Maybe segueing into this state law, how do you feel about a national privacy law covering data protection, biometrics? Where's your thoughts on right now? It's all state driven. Where do you think we should have a federal law?
Um, I'm kind of split because I think on one end you need more regulation to protect people, but also too much regulation creates issues too. But I think we just need a general privacy protection law just so that we have something to kind of, at least like a minimum level of regulation, and also so that companies know how to design to the law and can kind of just like get this done with and move forward. So I think once we have like a national or federal law that guarantees a level of protection, then we'll have more innovation in the market. Because right now, just if there's no regulation, you can either have a ton of development or you can kind of just wait and see what's going to unfold. And we're seeing that with areas like cannabis where people just don't know what to do because they just don't know what to do, right?
Right. Well, and they just passed Europe just passed their own AI laws, and they passed GDPR 20
Yeah.
years ago. Seems like 20 years. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's 15. But it seems like whatever Europe is doing, we're replicating it, or we have to abide by it because it's there. So they're getting there first, I guess is what I'll call it. So they're telling us the law, and then we're, abiding by it, I would say.
Yeah, and from a development standpoint, once that product's created, it's created, right? You have to use it, and you have to use it the way the manufacturers made it. So we just got to catch up eventually.
All right, so we got to the speed round of questions, which I'm finding to be, very fun. And we asked you a few speed round questions earlier just because I knew you were ready for them. But in your world today, what's the elephant in the room?
I think the elephant in the room is really just a political question. Like, how do you police bad actors from other countries who are actively performing crimes in yours? Like, how do you secure your supply chains? Which is why we have all these laws and regulations like NDAA and TAA to protect the American people and companies. I think we need to figure out how to, I guess, extend that to the rest of the world.
What was your first real world digital transformation experience?
For me, it was the transition from dial-up to broadband. And yes, I'm old enough for that. And it was when we were all on AOL Instant Messenger, my friends and I, and we were in the chat rooms. We had to create usernames, and that was kind of fun. So that experience of just creating your digital identity was the earliest I can remember for that digital transformation.
And everybody talks about the dog cartoon that anybody can be whoever they want to be
Yeah.
on that platform, the cartoon. So I thought I'd throw that out there because that's everybody knows, everybody in the identity industry especially knows that, you know, dogs can be anyone who they want to be on the internet. And
I got mine right here.
yeah, I was going to point that out. Your dog moved once, but your dog hasn't moved since then. And I noticed that. What kind of dog is that? What kind of
So
dog
he's
you
a
got?
terrier. He's a rescue. I actually have another one right here. This is an Australian Shepherd.
Everybody likes the dogs online. That'll probably be more interesting than our conversation, actually. There you go. Nice.
Yeah, she was sleeping.
Those are the smartest dogs in the world.
Yeah, they're super smart.
Yeah. All right, jumping back in. Are biometrics and AI for identity and authentication safe or unsafe at any speed?
I think it will always, there's a risk of it being unsafe because once you have information, it can be used. And there's always a risk of someone using it for evil. So I'm on the unsafe side.
All right. Um, and then everybody has a body, and every body part is a biometric. Do you find one to be more useful than the other? Do you have a favorite modality?
Yeah, I prefer facial recognition just because you can just tell who the person is. Anything else you can't really tell. It's harder.
And then vacation destination. Do you like beach or mountains or other? And then do you like a particular location that's familiar, or do you like to go to uncharted waters?
So I prefer to go to Asian countries for vacation just because they have really good food and really good public transit. Um, but I would never use my identity when it comes to these
Oh,
places.
that was
Just
my next
because
question. I was like, hey, yeah, on vacation, would you use all this cool identity technology? But
I would never. I went to Singapore a few years ago and they knew who I was the moment I got there. I was like, okay, this is weird.
well, that's governmental and that's entry exit. So they're always going to know that you've left the U.S. and entered a different country.
But
Uh,
it's
so
scary.
that's Big Brother. Yeah, that's not going anywhere. That's to protect me and you from people that want to do bad stuff. Next question: how many times a day do you use aid to entry technology for either online or physical access?
And when it comes to biometrics, I think it's like anytime I touch my phone. So I don't know, is that like 90 times a day or something?
Okay, all right. I normally close out our podcast, the Aid to Entry podcast, by asking you, Jarrett Mui, who I call you the triple threat in the Aid to Entry conversation. What does the art of the possible mean to you?
I think what's possible is making it security and privacy universal and making it safe for consumers to use. So anything that can kind of fit those parameters, that's what's going to be key, and that's what's going to make our world a safer, better place, make sense financially. If we can integrate everything together, then we should, and we will.
Yeah, I use the phrase the kids because I'm old now. The kids don't want to do it the way their parents did it. So there's always going to be this next version of how life goes on. And I really feel like the fat wallet in your back pocket's going to go. And it's going to take a while, but kids don't want to carry a big fat wallet. And I agree. I mean, I hate carrying a big fat wallet or a passport, but I'm still going to have them in my backpack for a while till we figure it all out. But I think in my lifetime, this is all going to be air, is what all these different credentials will be figured out.
I think one of the key pieces actually is um, tying it to your bank. Like once you get the frictionless access control down and frictionless payments, then you actually have to create a way for people to manage their money and not accidentally buy things they can't afford. So there's going to be that piece coming up at some point. Because like in China, people you can just show up, grab a bottle, and it already deducts that money from your bank account. Um, Amazon's already kind of doing that, but there's no financial like management piece yet, or at least a good one. So I think that's going to be something that we got to think about in the future, and tying that with security too.
It's happening. I mean, my kid just came home from a basketball game I live in Chicago, so you can figure out what basketball team it was. But he's like, Dad, it was so cool. I was able to like walk into this, area, pick up a water, and leave, and it charged his card. Like, that's where I was like, hey, did you give consent or what's going on with that? So, we got to put some guardrails up on I guess, age demographics and all that good stuff. But my son used it over the weekend here to buy water at a basketball game, and he looked at his phone and said, "Oh, it took it out already." So, I don't know where that's going with under 21 kids, but it works for under 21 children also. As we wrap up though today, what conversations or interactions might you want to have with our listeners or our viewers?
Um, I would say when it comes to design, just keep in mind that you always want to protect the end user, and having those conversations up front and early kind of spreads awareness. So we should try to always keep that in mind. It just makes you a better consultant and a better salesperson ultimately.
Sounds like a pretty good sales message too. If you can, if that's your niche in the marketplace, pretty good niche to have. And then, lastly, how should they connect with you if they should want to reach out to you?
Yeah, you can always find me on LinkedIn. Just make sure you spell my name right. I would not appreciate an email, but you can also email me at jmui@designwesteng.com.
Awesome. And we'll make sure that you and I talk about what valuable links we should put in the chat after this discussion so everyone can learn more about you and about the topic and what we just riffed on, I call it, in the chat. We'll put some valuable information for downloading purposes. So Jarrett, I just wanted to say thank you. We learned a lot today, and we really appreciate the time you took to be on season 1, episode 5 of the Aid to Entry podcast. And I look forward to talking more about the art of the possible with you in the future. And last thing I always like to say is let's get physical and online access permissions under control before it's too late.
I agree.